Hello and welcome. I have a quick video for you where I'm just going to simply cover the definition essay rubric. This video is totally optional, but it could help illuminate what I'm looking for as I grade your assignments after you turn them in. So once you scroll to the bottom of the prompt for your definition essay, you will see the rubric noted right here. The points are going to be on the right, and then the criteria will be on the left. Treat the criteria like a checklist. Go through each individual section and make sure that you can answer yes to all of the questions. And again, that's what I'm going to walk you through right now. So, talking about the scope, the main way that you would lose points on the scope section is if you choose a word that is way too vague for this assignment. So the main tip that I have for you is to look at my feedback on your definition essay word that I gave you earlier this week and ensure that I approved it. If I did not, then you will lose a point in this section. For the dictionary definition, do you provide a reputable dictionary definition of your word? So that means anything from the Oxford English Dictionary to dictionary.com to even things outside of the realm of said dictionary. So encyclopedia.com could work. If you have a reputable organization, so say Stanford's Encyclopedia of Mental Health, then you're more than welcome to use something like that. But I do want essentially a textbook definition of your word. If you're unsure about whether or not your word falls into one of those categories, feel free to email me and I'll let you know, and we can go on from there. When you use your dictionary name, be sure to italicize it. We italicize containers in MLA 9th, which we'll talk about later in the quarter. You're not required to write this paper in MLA 9th, but it's just good practice to get through. Moving on to your stipulation. So the main point of this definition essay is that you are making an argument for your stipulation, your interpretation of a definition for your word. So make sure that your stipulation goes beyond the dictionary definition. For some of you, it's going to be more specific, and for others, it's going to be broadened, depending on what argumentative structure that you're taking. Is your stipulation similar enough to the dictionary definition that the readers have an easy time accepting it? So you don't want any stipulation that's completely out of left field. Is your stipulation concrete and specific? And did your essay prove through argument that your stipulation is better than the dictionary definition of the word? So again, the main point of this definition essay is this highlighted section right here. Your negation. Do you include an appropriate negation of your word? Do you avoid being too obvious in your negation? So don't simply say the opposite of what your word is. So for example, pull is not push. It's like, yes, that's obvious. You don't need to say that. Your negation is an argument in and of itself, and it pushes your stipulation forward. If you're having any questions about what the negations are, please refer to all of the readings that you've done this week. Examples. Do you include sufficient concrete examples to prove your stipulation? Do these examples help support your argument? Do you use examples to make multiple points in your essay? So that's the main thing that I'm looking for. Your examples need to be dissimilar enough that they are making different points completely to push your stipulation forward. So avoid repeating your support. You're making separate points. And again, you can see examples of that in the sample reading that you did. Hook. So arguably the hook is the most important part of a paper. That first sentence should be captivating. You should avoid general statements like since the beginning of time or everyone knows. It should be interesting, and it should have a nice clear voice and style. So again, your goal is to hook people's interest in that initial sentence of your essay. In your introduction, do you explain why an extended definition of your word is necessary? So why are you defining this word? Why now? This is a good moment to provide context and background information about your word. So why is it timely? Like maybe you're choosing a word that needs to be defined in this moment in time because blank. That would be a perfect place to put in your introduction. Your conclusion, do you conclude your essay effectively? Do you avoid restating your support in your conclusion? In this short of a paper, you should wrap it up really quick. So your conclusion does not need to be long at all. It can simply be, 2 or 3 sentences. You do not need to repeat everything that is redundant and boring. So instead, find a clever way of wrapping it up effectively. A good way to do that is to simply tie back to your hook in your introduction, kind of come full circle, but there are other techniques techniques to use as well. So whatever feels right to you is what I should be seeing for the conclusion. Don't stress too much over this component. But I should say, you do need a conclusion. So don't just abruptly end your paper. If you were to do that, you would lose points in this category. For your sources, do you cite any sources that you use using a signal phrase? So signal phrases are part of your sentences where you say, according to, the NewYorkTimes.com, according to dictionary.com, that kind of thing. But anything that is not common knowledge does need to be cited. So please don't forget to do that. Do you include a list of sources at the end of your paper on a separate page? At this point in time, because I've not covered MLA 9th yet, you can just simply include a list of your sources, a list of links, whatever works for you. But I do need to see everything that is not common knowledge does need to be cited. And again, that's using your signal phrases, just simply saying, according to blank. And sorry about that. That just flashed up on the screen. Okay. Organization. So do you have a clear organizational structure where there's only one governing idea per paragraph? That's really important. If you have multiple ideas in one paragraph, then you're going to want to break up your paragraphs to represent them more effectively. Do you remain focused on your definition the whole paper? You shouldn't go on tangents in such a short paper. You should stay focused on your definition. Do you avoid relying too heavily on personal experience? It's okay to mention personal anecdotes. That a good moment for that would be in your introduction or your conclusion or both. However, I want to see examples that extend beyond the scope of just you, because it can become anecdotal evidence, which is not something you want to rely too heavily on. Do you transition between sentences to avoid choppiness and connect your ideas? So I always recommend that students read their papers out loud. That's when you can feel whether something is choppy or not. And if you've had problems with choppiness or transitions in the past, you're more than welcome to come to my office hours or meet with a tutor at the Learning Support Center. Style and voice. This is a great paper to experiment with your voice and style. The papers that tend to not do well in this category are papers that are just simply read like academic essays, that read in a way that are just boring and not at all entertaining to the readers. A big part of argument is being able to explain your ideas in a way that is captivating to an audience. If an audience is not captivated, then they're not going to want to accept your ideas as much as maybe you want. So play with style. If you are ironic in real life, then use an ironic style. If you're, logical or serious, you're more than welcome to mimic that style as well. But I do want to see an intentional use of tone. And all of the readings that you've done so far have very intentional tones and styles to them that you can mimic if it feels natural. Or again, you can use whatever feels good to you. A main part of voice and style is that you need to avoid cliches. These types of papers, unfortunately, do lend themselves to cliches. So things like home is where the heart is, or a man's best friend, family is more than blood. All those are cliches. They're ideas that have gone stale from overuse. I want you to avoid them. If you proposed a word to me that lends itself to cliches, then I told you that originally, so you want to steer clear of those. Okay. And then stay consistent with your writing voice and style. In such a short essay, you do want to pick one and stick with it. Grammar mechanics, essentially, do you carefully proofread your essay? I don't want to be distracted by any kind of sentence level errors. So focus on making sure that you communicate your points effectively using as few grammatical errors as possible. It is always a good idea to have someone else read your paper, whether that is a parent or a friend or the Learning Support Center, me, just to catch those small grammatical things that you might not even notice. When you're discussing your word as a word, so for example, the word friend, in that case, you would italicize or put it in quotes. Either one would work for me. And then try to avoid wordiness if in your writing. Use as few words as possible to communicate your points. Okay, last but not least is just the logistics. Is your essay between 2 and 3 pages? Note if the paper falls below 2 pages or goes above 3, there's an overall 10-point deduction. Is your essay double-spaced? Does your essay have 1-inch margins all around? Is it 12-point readable font? Do you include a title at the top center of your paper? And do you submit your essay as a PDF? Those are just like simple check mark things. I hope that this was helpful. The whole paper will be worth 21 points, and I'll be grading them in the order that I receive them. Have a great day, and let me know if you have any questions.